Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Entrepreneur 411 webinar. My name is Dan Molka of the Heritage Corridor Business Alliance, and today we're speaking to David Condon of Edward Jones and David Hiss of John Hancock. They're going to be speaking about the Illinois Secure Choice Program Savings Act. This is a law that's already into effect if you have 16 or more W-2 employees, and will go into effect for those having 5 or more W-2 employees here later this November. So let me turn it over to David Condon and David Hiss.
Sure. Thanks everybody for joining today. My name is David Condon. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is located here on in Homer Glen, just west of Ace Hardware on 159th Street. My role as a financial advisor is I work with individual families and small business owners. And part of that work with small business owners is setting up retirement plans. I have the opportunity to use trusted contacts and product partners that are available through me and Dave Hiss with John Hancock. He is a retirement plan specialist, and I thought that this is a good topic, to get some information out on with the Illinois Secure Choice Act, for small business owners, kind of the regulations and things like that, and the rules around, what's going to transpire here in November of this year with companies that have 5 or more employees. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Dave. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to assist me with this presentation, but the floor is yours.
Great, Dave. Thank you. And Dan, thank you for organizing this. Certainly the approach this afternoon is to inform, educate, and most importantly, to describe what is going on for business owners, soon to be with 5 or more W-2 employees come November of this year. So the purpose of today is to educate you. It's not to sell anything to you, but to make sure that you're aware of, because most importantly, what we have found in our travels is that most business owners are still not fully aware of the recent, or not even recent, basically a law that was passed back in 2015 that has kind of rolled under the radar until here very recently. So basically the objective today is going to be very simple. What we want to focus on as a presentation is really kind of 4 areas. One is, what is secure choice? 2, get into some of the details, talk about what your alternatives are to secure choice, and then any questions and answers that you may have. So that's really what the objective of today is. So just to give you a quick, overview, secure choice actually was started by the Illinois legislature back in 2015. So when we look at the timelines, is that currently the opportunity was to start with 500 or more employees, and then slowly bring that number down, as I said, to 5 later this year. This was designed to essentially eliminate quite a few things. And that the goal was actually quite simple. One was to reduce the retirement gap for employees. And what I mean by that is this: is currently businesses with less than 50 employees, only about a third to 35% have retirement plans for their employees. So we all know from an effective component, if you can pay yourself first, which is to put money coming right out of your paycheck, you're more likely to save than to go ahead and to spend it in the future. So as I said, the law was actually passed in 2015, but went into law in 2018 with companies starting with 500 or more. Then it went down to 100, and then it went down to 25, and then recently in 2022 went to 16, and then we'll go down to 5 employees in 2023. The reason why this is so important is that this is a mandated state program. This is not a retirement program, but basically a glorified individual savings account. And we'll get into a little bit more about that. And then from the investment side of it, they're actually very, very limited. So on the detail side of it, there's really 5 key areas. One is who's impacted. Well, it's any business owner in the state of Illinois that employs more than 5 W-2 employees. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear on this, is that this does not matter if you are full-time or part-time. You have to be there at least 60 days, age 21, and are a W-2 employee. So that's how they're calculating that number. And where they're getting that information is from the payroll records that employers are filing with the state. The second piece of it is the type of account. This is not to be confused with a 401k program. It is not to be confused with a SEP or simple. This is specifically individual accounts that are being mandated by the state, and each of them are going to be under a Roth IRA. There are a couple key provisions. Number one is that it does have what we call automatic enrollment. So unless an employee goes on the state website and declines it, an employer by law must withdraw 5% of the employee's pay and send it to the state under the Roth IRA program under Illinois Secure Choice. And then every single year, that has to be increased by 1% to a maximum of 10%. So that's an important part of it. Again, unless the employee declines it, then they will need to do that. Now, again, this is an important piece because every employee that once they've been there 60 days, employers need to notify the employees of these rules. But again, if the employee does not do it, then they are automatically enrolled. The investment options are basically down to 5, okay? There is a target date, which is managed through BlackRock. There is a large cap, a bond fund, a cash account, and then a balance fund, and that's it. So that's all the employees can choose from, and they do not receive any guidance from the state, nor do they receive any guidance from their employer. They must go ahead and make a selection. If they don't make any selection, they are defaulted into the target dates. And then from administrative fee, there is no cost to the employer. So there's no document cost. There is no administrative cost per se. I'll get back to that here in a second. But there is a fee of 0.75% that would be deducted directly from the participant accounts. Now, here is where the kicker, when I said that there's no fees to the employer, that is if they are in compliance. Failure to follow this program. Let's say I don't enroll employees on time. I choose not to participate in that program. Then the fine by the state is $250 per W-2 employee in year 1, and it is $500 per employee in year 2. So the state of Illinois has been sending out these fine letters. We received one recently. We're from a prospective client that had 63 employees. The fine that they received from the state was over $15,000. So again, pretty significant components. So what are the employer requirements? Well, basically there are 4. One is that you must register with the state whether you have a retirement plan or you don't. So you need to go onto the Illinois Secure Choice website, and even if you do have a retirement plan, which means either you have a 401k or a simple, you still need to register with the state. We have had clients that have received fine letters because they failed to go in and register with the state. So that's an important part. Second is they need to send all employee data to the program's administrator, who is the state of Illinois in partnership with a firm called the Census. And so they're getting that information from your payroll records to show who is eligible. You must need to enroll all eligible employees. So as I indicated a moment ago, if the employee does not go onto the state website and decline it, by law, that employer must take 5% out of the employee's paycheck and put it into the plan. And then the final piece of it is they must adjust the contributions each year as part of that automatic enrollment. So the key thing about this is that the state has written the legislation in such a way is that employee must decline continually. So every year they may have to go back and re-decline. If they've declined once, they're not out completely. They have to do it on an annual basis and try to re-enroll in the program. So as you can see, even though there is not a lot of cost, there is a significant amount of administrative work that needs to be done by employees. So one of the questions that we get is, what are the choices? Well, you are exempt from the program, from the Illinois Secure Choice, if you have a 401k plan in place, meaning that you have either a 401k or a simple, you are automatically exempt. Now, under the Secure Choice, the program is very limited. First, it's Roth only, so there is no pre-tax concept. The other thing that you need to be aware of, since this is an individual Roth, many folks who make too much money are not eligible to participate. Okay, those restrictions do not exist in a 401k program currently. So everything is after tax. So under a 401k, you can do it both pre-tax and after tax. You have automatic escalation. Now, there are no employer contributions allowed in the plan. Okay, so that's an important part of that. And then the administrative responsibilities are by the state law, which any federal law would subsede it regarding responsibility. So again, under the federal law, if you participate in a 401k, you then are exempt from the individual state mandates.
David, I have to assume that the state has access to databases and they can compare payroll records to those that have applied for Illinois Secure Choice or companies that opted out because they have a retirement plan.
You are absolutely accurate, Dan, because what they're doing is they're cross-referencing, they're cross-referencing payroll records to the registration records. So if you have a pay record for ABC company that has more than 25 employees and they cross-reference that to the registration and they don't see ABC as registered, then they will deem that as non-compliant and send out the appropriate fine letters.
And with it being computerized, it's got to be simple.
Right. Now, I will say this part of it is that the reason why a lot of this has been quiet is the state did postpone any fines during a period of COVID. So basically, no fines went out in 20 and 21. Now they've started fining in 22, and we're starting to see a significant increase in that activity here in the first quarter of 2023. I've personally witnessed about a half a dozen clients that have received these formal letters of fines. So I do apologize for this slide. It needs to be updated. These are actually 22 numbers. In 2023, that was increased actually to 22.5. And so the total contribution for those 50 and above is now $30,000 under the law for 2023. So from a questions perspective, I also have the actual presentation that is being done by the state regarding Illinois Secure Choice. So if anyone has questions about the investment choices or any of the different timelines, I can certainly flip to those slides as well as a resource.
Elena Raklitis with the Lithuanian World Center. Hi, thanks for this presentation. So that 0.75% fee that is attached to this would be paid by the employee through that program, right? And it's a Roth-based investment that they would have 5%?
That is correct. It is absolutely. So it would come off of the returns of the funds, correct.
Okay, and because our employees, we're talking about 9 full and part-time, maybe 10 at this point, and if they were to go on the state website, and maybe Dan, you'd be able to share that post this presentation, so we have that easily accessible. They just need to meet with me, let's say one day, and we'd go on the website. I would need to explain this to all of them, but if they choose to opt out, then it's a simple form that you know of online?
It's online. There are no forms by the state, and they did that on purpose for tracking purposes. So what happens is it's actually a rolling enrollment. And so that's why it's not a one and done type of scenario. So the eligibility for this program is, again, age 21, W-2, and they've been employed for 60 days. So if I get hired today on March 20th, I've got to count out 60 days. And if I've not declined within those 60 days, my next paycheck, you would have to take 5% out of my pay. So depending upon your turnover rates, it's a rolling 60 days on each person.
Yeah, so these people are long-term employees, have been and probably will be. So nobody's within that window. So I guess they're then mandated that they already have to be enrolled then if we missed that window.
Right. So in your particular situation, you said you had 8 to 9 employees. So let me clarify that. So the eligibility dates that are going to occur are going to be the plan. You become eligible as of November of 2023, because there's that window. It's now 5 to 16 at that point. You have 60 days in which to be in compliance. So that really means that they would have to make a decision by January 1st of 2024.
That's better. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So I just want to kind of clarify that. That's been a lot of questions that we have received. You become eligible within 60 days from that date. So as an example, if you had been 17 employees, then it would have been as of 60 days following November of 2022. So then by January of 2023, you may need to be in compliance.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
David, can you also touch on what happens if there's any staffing changes and you may jump above 5 or below 5 during your calendar year?
Yeah, I mean, that's where we've asked for clarification from the state, Dan. Basically, how the legislation reads is if you reach 5 employees or 16 employees or 20, whatever within that calendar year, you then become eligible. Now, again, that 60-day window would be it. So as an example, if I'm at 3 employees and I hire 2 and 1 quits within 60 days, I never got to 5, because they never became eligible, then that's kind of that gray area. But if you're consistently, in that 5, 6, 7 type of situation, the simplest way to handle it is just to register with the state so that you don't risk any fines.
Are there any other questions for the Davids?
Yeah, again, I'm happy to answer, get into a lot more details. Again, we didn't want to go through a 30-slide deck. That really wasn't the intention here. But what I can do, I'm going to stop my share real quick. And I'm going to shift to a presentation here. So I'm going to jump ahead a couple. This is actually the presentation that is being done by the state to convey the program. So I just want to kind of jump ahead a couple pages here. So this is the registration deadlines from the Treasurer's Office. I thought that this would be of interest to everyone. Again, you see where the deadlines have passed, and we're coming up on the most recent deadline here. So that's a big part of it. And then I was trying to find this slide here.
I would say, David, we're still on the title slide.
Okay, it should catch up here in a second. Just jump ahead a little bit there, part of it. So yeah, so this is the deadline. So this was the, basically what the state had sent out regarding the different levels of 500 and then the different breaks, all the way down to 5 to 15 employees, which again, as we talked about, was, as of January of 2023. So this is the investment options that are in there. As you can see, one's the Capital Preservation Fund, Target Dates Conservative Fund, and the Growth Funds. So very limited options. But then this is the slide I wanted to show, which is the Illinois Secure Choice registration slide. So this is for the participants, and this is what would happen. So you basically would plug in your access code, or this is for the employers, excuse me. You would plug in your access code that you go through. And so you basically have to go to illinoissecurechoice.com. It's not .net, and this is how you would go into that registration piece.
And Dan, for everybody listening, and David and I have partnered together with a few companies, to answer questions, get into more specifics, the pros and cons of setting up the state plan or setting up a 401k or a simple plan. We can get into, the startup credits that are potentially eligible for startup 401k plans, things like that. But we're more than happy to answer any questions, even offline, or set up a Zoom call with a specific business owner, because everybody's situation is a little bit different. So we've done that before, and we're more than happy to do that again.
And you'll have access to both David Condon and David Hiss's contact information on our show episode page. And at the same time, too, we'll have a replay of this, so that way you can watch it back at your leisure and make sure that you're well aware of this upcoming law. And too, if you know any business owners that might find it useful as well, please forward it on to them.
Are there any other questions? And again, if you don't feel comfortable asking a question now, Dan's going to list, my contact information. I would be the first point of contact. Dave's contact information will be on there. Feel free to, send an email or call our office. More than happy to discuss your specific situation with you.
David Condon, can you talk a little bit about some of the time savings that working with some professionals on a retirement plan would have for your business in compared to working with the Illinois Secure Choice?
as far as from an HR standpoint and things and recording, there's still administrative tasks that need to be done with a 401k plan, but a lot of that can be delegated to the custodian or the company that we use as a 401k provider. And that's where you also have somebody to work with, like myself, as a direct contact that could do educational seminars, enrollment, things like that, to take that, give that time back to the business owner so they can be investing that time in their business and not worrying about things like that. So, and contribution limits are higher. There's benefits to the business owner, to start up a 401k plan. So there's a lot of differences, and time saving is one of them, but also opportunity for your employees to be better educated, because that's a big question with employees. Do I have enough to retire? How much do I contribute? Where do I even start? Things like that. So that's where the educational piece comes into play, and that's my job and Dave's job initially, but mine moving forward, to work with the business owner and to work with their employees to make sure somebody's answering all their questions.
And the website for Illinois Secure Choice is ilsecurechoice.com. And we're going to put that at the bottom of the screen here for those watching us online. Not seeing any other questions in the chat box, and actually seeing a lot of thumbs up. So we do want to thank our guests today, David Condon of Edward Jones and David Hiss of John Hancock. They're great experts to reach out to. Make sure if you have any questions, you can reach out to either the Davids, or you can reach out to the HCBA here as well. And we're going to let you guys say a few parting words.
I would just like to thank everybody for their time. I'm here as a resource, so feel free, once my contact information is posted, to send me an email, give our office a call. But again, thanks everybody for taking a half hour out of your day. I hope this was answered some questions, and we provided an educational component for all of you on the call.
And on behalf of the Heritage Corridor Business Alliance, my name's Dan Molka. Thank you for tuning in to an Entrepreneur 411 webinar, and we'll see you next time.